Everyone, I am Tyler Piper, and you are watching CIO Insight here on the Pulse Network. I'm joined by Eric Lundquist of Ziff Davis Enterprise. And Eric, we're kind of entering the mobile tablet space, if you will, right now.
Well, we're entering the mobile tablet space, and some people are exiting the mobile tablet space. The big news recently, last week, was Hewlett-Packard, I don't know, like a week after they introduced their tablet, said they're getting out of the business. Smartphones seem to be out of that right now. Talking about selling their PC business. They are number one in the world in this. So this is a big move from a big company. So I'm very anxious to get Jason Brooks, the director of eWeek Labs, in to talk a little bit about what he's seeing out there around this sort of tablet and mobile space, and give some advice to the IT community. I got to tell you, I sent my youngest son off to University of Kansas, Jayhawk.
He's a Jayhawk, yeah. 2
days before he left, we went up to Best Buy and I bought him. He wanted a Windows. I said, get an HP laptop because you'll get a good warranty and they'll always be around. So don't listen to my advice all the time.
Well, here, we're not going to listen to Eric's advice. However, we will, in fact, listen to Jason Brooks' advice, the director of eWeek Labs. Jason, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, thanks.
So let's kind of jump right into it. What do you make of everything that's really taken place over the last couple of weeks, if you will, inside this tablet space right now?
Yeah, it's been a wild and woolly couple of weeks. I mean, there's a couple of things really stand out to me when Google made the announcement that they were going to buy Motorola. Everybody said, "Wow, what are all the tablet and device makers going to do now that they've got their platform supplier competing with them?" And my thought at that time was, well, you don't have a whole lot of options, really. I mean, you've got Apple and you've got Android. You got iOS and you have Android, and those are the 1 and 2 platforms pretty solidly. So Apple's not going to license you their OS, and so it's pretty much Android. And then HP comes along the next week, and they basically illustrate that point that being in a battle for number 3 right now in this mobile space is not a place you want to be, and HP is cutting and running on this. So what's interesting to look at is okay, now how is Google going to allay those fears that device makers have over competing with their platform vendor?
One question I had, Jason, was WebOS was seen as technically a pretty good product in terms of marketing, and I guess it's still going to be around. It's very unclear in terms of what's going to be the status of it. There is another player out there, Microsoft, who's coming out with their mobile product. But do you see it sort of more and more as just a two-horse race between Google and Apple?
Well, it is what it is. I mean, that's the fact is that right now it is a two-horse race. And the thing about Microsoft is that if this were, like the birth of the Xbox, right, where Microsoft was just getting into that space and they were going to make a play for it and let's see what happens, that'd be one thing. But I have been following Microsoft devices for over 10 years now. And so it's not like Windows Phone 7 is just a new thing out on the scene. I mean, we were reviewing the compact iPacs, back almost 10 years ago. And in a lot of ways, they foreshadowed what you were going to see in the iPhone, but Microsoft just wasn't able to get it done. So my question with Microsoft is, what are they going to do now that's going to be different? One of the things, I was a fan, back in the day of BOS, and I was trying to said, okay, Windows is the number 1 in desktops, and Apple is the number 2. We're going to try to just break into that number 3 spot. And, that didn't work out too well for them. They ended up actually getting bought by Palm, their assets, and Palm didn't do anything with it. And then Palm got bought by HP, and I don't know where any of that IP is now.
Right. I'm curious. Yeah. Last week we had Kevin Barrett on. He's the CTO of the Johnson School of Business from Cornell, and he was saying, look, you can't predict what's going to go on in the marketplace. We in IT just have to deal with whatever device comes on the table and have to figure out somehow to have it work on our networks and still be secure. I guess, something as big as HP bailing out of tablets, bailing out of smartphones, is that the advice for IT to say, look, you can't predict the market, so you just need to be able to have the flexibility and the internal knowledge to figure out how to get whatever device comes in from the employees on the network?
Yeah, that's definitely key. You have to work with your users, and you have to deal with the pieces that you have. And we've talked for a long time about this aspect or that aspect of iOS isn't quite as enterprise friendly as we would like. But the fact of the matter is that is what that's what people are using. That's what's out there. So in this age of consumerization of IT, a lot of non-traditional IT sort of priorities are driving things. Now, with that said, you can still, I think that it makes sense for IT departments to keep a focus on standards, look at how HTML5 is developing. I mean, that kind of is still the great hope of a kind of platform agnostic application possibility, but it's a little ways out right now. I mean, IT managers have to deal with just the realities, and where they can push, they should continue to push for standards. But there's a lot of times there's only so much you can do with that.
I'm curious. I had my iPad out the other day, and I was looking for a word processing program for it, and I said, well, okay, I'll try. Apple has Pages, which is a pretty cool program. You go to the App Store, you download it with like $4.95. And I'm saying, wow, this is such a different world from when everyone had to buy Microsoft Office for, $180 per user per year. I happen to like Pages. I am assuming there's probably 50 other word processing programs out there. They are all supposed to interact. I mean, is that the future of tablets and smartphones, where you're just going to have your own sort of corporate app store and pull down a few favorite apps that you want to work with that might just cost a couple bucks at a time?
Well, one of the corporate app store angle, I think, is that is a very interesting and for IT, I think, an exciting element of the whole iOS push. And ideally, we want to have a world where we are pulling down applications that have been vetted to some extent. And I think that there's an opportunity for IT departments in the future to be able to plug their users into this kind of thing. Now, how the pricing is going to work, what's worth it, it's still tough to. I think the biggest issue on that front really is going to be just input mechanisms. I mean, I've answered a few emails on tablets, but you're not going to go writing a long feature on the tablet. At least I don't think so at this point. I mean, that's not been my experience. So I think that before tablets really take over as the kind of enterprise app platform, we're going to have to see some changes in what they're capable of. But I think that App Store model where it is controlled, vetted applications, that's very attractive for IT.
Hey, Jason, I just had a question as far as that goes. I mean, one article that I read actually this morning that we talked a little bit about happens to be, it was on the New York Times, and they went in depth about just regarding how fast the overturn is with some of these products that are really out there right now. Some of the competitive products, really. Like HP, it's on the market for 30 days, tops, and then it's pulled right off. I mean, it seems like there's not enough time and not enough change. I mean, the way they equated it to was the movies. If it doesn't have a big opening weekend, guess what? This thing's a flop already. Is that really how this is what it's come to at this point?
Well, I think that's where we are, because it's kind of an early stage. I mean, part of what's key here is that companies like HP, when they're looking at what platform they're going to bet on, there's some wariness about saying we are going to make a bet where Google is in control of our platform. That's not attractive, and this is something that Eric and I were talking about earlier. Is that if Android were more open, were more like Linux, say, which is something that HP does ship and Oracle does ship and IBM, and if you have a platform that is more open and more people feel that they have an ownership stake in it, and that one player can't do something like Google has done with the Honeycomb version of Android, where they've said it's going to be open source eventually, but not yet. we've decided that we're not going to release it yet. I mean, that when one player can kind of play those games or make those decisions about whether something, oh, now it's open, now it's not, you're going to have a lot of wariness about making bets on that. But I think that if Google can move Android to open it up more, then you can see kind of more of an OEM space like we've seen in the PC world, where people can say, okay, I'm going to stop trying to reinvent the wheel. I'm going to stop trying to own my own platform completely, and I'm going to work on differentiating off of a base that we can share. And then if we get to that, I think we're going to see less of these big, short-lived flops, because you'll have a platform that really will have a longer lifespan to it, and companies can feel more secure in choosing it.
So there you go, Tyler.
There it is. All in a nutshell. Hey, Jason, honestly, great stuff. Really great talking today. Really appreciate it.
Sure thing.
Not a question. Great stuff. Jason Brooks, eWeek Labs. A pleasure for sure. We got a lot more CIO Insight, guys. Don't go anywhere. You're watching the Pulse Network.
The Pulse Network. It's social TV.